Welcome to Friday night's Prime News on S3. We are live with you tonight here from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. On this big news day, the judgment in favour of President Cyril Ramaphosa dominates our bulletin. The chairperson of the Section 89 Impeachment Committee, Makashule Ghana, in the meantime says that the work of the committee will not be disrupted by this Western Cape High Court ruling. The Madlanga Commission has heard that Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim has, since his March appearance, failed to provide information regarding his auditor and the financial records of his businesses. Good evening, let's bring the world in focus tonight. This is Prime News on S3. My name is Gustav Freiling and with me our sign language interpreter, Fortune Madlala. You are very welcome to stay with us for your daily news roundup. The Western Cape High Court has ruled in favour of President Cyril Ramaphosa and interdicted the impeachment committee from proceeding with the impeachment process against him. President Ramaphosa approached the court last month to halt the impeachment process pending the review of the Section 89 independent panel report. Now, the report found that he has a case to answer regarding the Pala Pala farm scandal.
It's a judgment that was eagerly awaited by all parties involved. Court 18, where the matter was heard over 2 days last week by a full bench and judgment delivered, was packed. Interested parties had sent their representatives. But the bigwigs in the legal fraternity that argued the matter were all absent. The majority judgment lasted for a few minutes.
The first and second respondents are interdicted from proceeding with the public impeachment hearings in terms of Rule 129 capital M of the National Assembly Rules. 2. The cost of the application shall stand over for determination by the court which hears the review.
We need to deal with illegal migration.
President Cyril Ramaphosa was the applicant, and there were 7 respondents.
We have got a work that we must undertake to look together with our legal advisors in Parliament to determine the exact implication of this judgment on the whole process that we have been directed to undertake in terms of the judgment of the Constitutional Court.
Amaja, SABC News, Cape Town.
Now, the judgment has drawn mixed political reaction, with opposition parties accusing the president of delaying accountability.
Someone who's really avoiding accountability. So it is a pattern. And we are going to study the judgment and see how we then move forward.
Laying tactic, and it's highly disappointing that the judges would accept the argument that his reputation would be negatively affected.
I think this court made an error and undermined the constitutional obligation of a parliament that is representing the people, because it is not me and the other members of parliament who just want answers. It is South Africans.
It's a very important decision for separation of powers, and it needs to be studied very carefully. But, it doesn't stop the committee from doing its work.
We believe that the president, like anyone in the country, has got the right to sought relief where he feels that his rights are impeded upon.
We abide by the judgment, and Parliament must continue doing its work as it best fits.
From what I heard is that it's only the public hearings that have been interdicted, but as soon as we have studied the full judgment, we will then be able to give further updates from our side as the impeachment committee.
Let's now continue the conversation and speak to ATM leader and impeachment committee member Vuyo Zungula. Good evening, Mr. Zungula. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. You have described today's judgment as a setback for accountability. We saw you there earlier at the court. Why do you believe that the courts got it wrong today?
Well, the constitutional provision of accountability, even in previous cases whereby Advocate Mkhwebane tried to interdict Parliament from a Section 194 process, in the Western Cape High Court at the time, it was very clear that it is one of the most important provisions in a constitutional democracy whereby people occupying public office must be held accountable. And at the same time, you can't then want to elevate the reputation, the perceived harm of the reputation or the status of a public office bearer over the constitutional provision of accountability. Back then, the courts actually ruled in favor of accountability. However, today, the Western Cape High Court contradicted previous rulings and ruled in favor of protecting the perceived harm, which has not happened, by the way, which has not been determined that it will happen, but a prospect that it may happen. So it is something that is disappointing because it sets a dangerous precedent whereby each and every public office bearer, when they are going to be held accountable, can make the very same arguments as President Ramaphosa did. And the last issue I want to raise here, this is not really about the different political parties or applicants and the respondents in the case, but it is about the principle that whoever occupies public office must be answerable to the people. Now, Parliament is a representation of the people. So whatever that we do in that particular house, we're doing it on behalf of the people because it's the people that need answers as to what transpired in Palapala. And as we sit here now, no one can say in South Africa that they are certain and they are happy with the answers they got from their president.
Okay, let's talk about the practicalities now. The court appears to have only stopped the public hearings. Is the committee going to continue with its administrative work in the meantime while the review is now pending?
Definitely, that is our understanding as well, that next Wednesday we are going to finalize the terms of reference, finalize the selection of the evidence leaders. We are going to do everything that is legally permissible. And at the same time, there's going to be a challenge to this particular judgment because we can't let it slide. We can't allow this dangerous precedent, especially in light that the principle of the separation of powers was affirmed in the previous cases when it comes to interdicts. However, this particular instance, the principle of separation of powers has been largely ignored. So it's those issues that we as a party want to assure South Africans that we will be going to the Constitutional Court to ensure that we protect the sanctity of the judiciary, the separation of powers principle, and most importantly, the principle of holding accountable all of the public office bearers.
Okay, so you mentioned challenging this now, and you mentioned the Constitutional Court. What legal or parliamentary options are you considering then at this stage that remain available, even in Parliament, to the ATM following today's judgment then?
In Parliament, nothing changes. Next week, the meeting that was planned is going to continue. The agenda of the meeting was to discuss the evidence leaders, finalize the terms of reference. That will happen. In court, by the way, we are going to file our papers over the weekend and ensure that by the time, Tuesday or Wednesday comes, we've already filed our papers seeking to set aside and challenge this particular court order because we are of the view that it is not a court order that advances the constitutional democratic principles. It must be challenged to protect the independence of Parliament, protect even the principle that an order that comes from the highest court in the land cannot be second-guessed in terms of its implementation by a lower court.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for your opinion on this matter. ATM leader and impeachment committee member Vuyo Zungula. Right, when we return, the Madlanga Commission has heard that Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim has failed to provide information regarding his auditor and the financial records of his businesses. Details on this story coming up after the break. Welcome back. The Madlanga Commission has heard that Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim has, since his March appearance, failed to provide information regarding his auditor and financial records of his businesses. Now this, as the Commission heard yet another postponement application from Karim's lawyers due to an undisclosed health challenge. The evidence leaders, however, opposed his fifth postponement sought, asking that it be accompanied with the condition that Karim be subjected to an independent medical examination.
Counsel on behalf of Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim returned to the Madlanga Commission seeking yet another postponement of Karim's testimony due to an undisclosed health challenge. Karim's team further admitted that he was indeed at a shopping complex in the Western Cape, arguing that it was not necessary to flight CCTV footage to prove that admitted fact.
With all due respect, in light of the affidavits that have been exchanged between the respective parties, I'm going to respectfully submit that the video footage is unnecessary today.
While the evidence leaders did not show the CCTV footage, they highlighted it through oral evidence and raised a significant development that emerged when the deponents, the doctor and Karim's wives, were confronted with this objective evidence such as CCTV footage, geolocations and data.
What the crux of the point here is, Chair, is that these shifting accounts in the affidavit are important because they show that each time that the deponents are presented with, confronted with objective evidence concerning Mr. Karim's movements, the explanation changes.
It is still not clear before the probe why Karim was not able to heed to a March request to provide his auditor's details and financial records. The hearings continue on Monday at 9:30 a.m. with the return of IDAC head, Advocate Andrea Johnson. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Pretoria.
Right after the break, motorists could see petrol prices drop by over R1 per litre this August, though diesel users may face a price hike. This and more when we come back. Welcome back. This year marks 30 years since the current South African Constitution was adopted in 1996. Tonight we look at the rights of children in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the United Nations in 1948. This declaration emphasizes that every person under 18 should be guaranteed the right to a name and nationality, parental or alternative care, basic nutrition, shelter, healthcare, and protection from abuse, neglect and exploitative labor. But despite such declarations, children continue to experience abuse, neglect, exploitation and also harm across households, schools, even communities and digital platforms. So to help us understand the seriousness of this, we are joined tonight by Karabo Oza, the Director of the Centre for Child Law at the University of Pretoria. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is often said that South Africa has one of the best constitutions in the world, but how effective is it in addressing the rights of children when you take into account global standards and agreements?
Thank you so much for having me. So I think the starting point is the fact that our constitution does provide a comprehensive piece of legislation or provisions for protection of children. As we always say, the devil is in the implementation. But we must also be honest about the fact that if you think about what was happening in apartheid versus what's happening now, there are some significant strides that have been made in relation to, for instance, access to education. More children are in schools. There may be challenges in relation to school infrastructure and issues such as that, but we have made strides in relation to access. There are provisions that have enabled us to, for instance, be able to get more protection for children. You mentioned the provisions around what happens if children need alternative care. You mentioned provisions such as, the right to a name and nationality and being able to get birth certificates. So we have a strong legal framework but there are continued challenges in relation to implementation. And I think that, when you think about human rights, children are also unfortunately caught up in where when you find that there is maybe a regression or lack of proper implementation of children's rights. Children, as one of the most vulnerable groups, are also at the receiving end of some of those regressions or challenges, which I think globally we are experiencing at the moment.
Yes, and as you explained, many children continue to experience discrimination and other challenges. But what forms of inequality in South Africa particularly affect children here?
I think the starting point is the fact that we have socioeconomic disparities that are always pointed out as really being concerning. There is a continued challenge that children live in, most children live in the most poorest of households. So you can imagine that obviously that affects the access to nutrition, access to education, access to other services. So that's already a first group that when poverty means that you get less. Yes, there are child support grants. Yes, there are other programs that are there to try and alleviate. But we know for a fact that, like, for instance, this year, there had to be an inquiry in the Eastern Cape about severe malnutrition and the impact on children. So that begs the question as to what are we doing in relation to that? Then you have children, for instance, that are children with disabilities. We continue to have serious challenges in relation to access to education for those children. We are told that measures are being made to make sure that those numbers of children out of school who have disabilities decline. But when you look at our programs, when you look at our approaches and the waiting list for those children, we are far from where we need to be. And parents are actually exasperated. You find that there are people who, for instance, I've been at the Center for Child Law for 20 years. I can tell you there are people who try to get their children into schools, children with disabilities for the past 10 years, and they struggle. So the children age out of the system not having been equipped. So that is one other form of discrimination that of serious concern. We need to be putting resources, particularly more resources towards the marginalized groups, children who are in dire circumstances such as those, to actually uplift them. And the problem is that when you have the current fiscal issues in relation to budgets for human rights, for rights in the Constitution, that will impact the most vulnerable first. And that is something that is of great concern.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Karabo Oza is the director of the Centre for Child Law at the University of Pretoria. Motorists could see petrol prices drop by over R1 per litre this August, though diesel users may face a price hike. This potential relief is under threat as global oil prices surge to $100 per barrel, hitting their highest levels in nearly 2 months.
Fund is basically said that the amount of drop you can expect in the petrol price has significantly decreased over the last couple of weeks. At the end of June, we're expecting something in excess of R3 in terms of a drop coming through because of the price of crude oil plus the strength of the rand. In the last couple of days, that has dropped significantly, and now we're barely looking at any decrease at all coming through. The reason being is that the price of oil has sharply increased. We've seen Brent crude oil go from the mid-70s to like almost 100 again.
World champion Pieter Coetzee is on course to bag a medal or 3 for Team South Africa in the pool at this year's Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in Scotland. He set a new Games record and qualified fastest for the men's 50 metres backstroke semi-finals, leaving his rivals in his wake.
Coetzee, who won 3 medals in the men's backstroke events at the previous Commonwealth Games in Birmingham in 2022, simply picked up from where he left off. Racing in lane 4 of the final heat in the men's 50-metre backstroke, he looked in sublime form, touching in a time of 24.45 seconds, a new Games record. Teammate Ruud van Rienen also reserved his place in the semi-finals. He finished in second place, just 0.33 seconds behind Coetzee.
I must say I didn't know what to expect at all, so just said I'm going to go out there and not have any expectations and just see what happens, and I'm glad that happened.
Meanwhile, the 23rd edition of the Commonwealth Games was officially declared open by Britain's King Charles during the opening ceremony in the Scottish city on Thursday night.
I extend my warmest gratitude to the city of Glasgow, to all the athletes, to the organisers, volunteers, and all those who have made this event possible.
More than 3,000 athletes from 74 nations and territories will compete across 10 codes during the Games that run until August the 2nd. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
Right, before we say goodnight, let's check in with Kumza at the weather desk for an update on the weekend weather outlook.
Good evening and welcome to the weather desk. A cold front has finally exited the country, but it is leaving behind isolated showers and rain along the coastal areas of the KwaZulu-Natal province as well as the wild coast of the Eastern Cape. Tomorrow, much clearing over the central regions with still some light rain and showers along the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. Morning fog patches can also be observed over the western parts of the country into the interior of the Western Cape as well as KwaZulu-Natal, where visibility may be reduced to less than 1 kilometer. The South African Weather Service warns of damaging winds and waves along the coastal areas of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as damaging winds there along the coastal areas of KwaZulu-Natal into the adjacent interior, where wind speeds this evening are going up to 40 kilometers per hour. It is a cool day for us here in the Gauteng province tomorrow afternoon, where Johannesburg is at 19, slightly warmer over the northern areas where eTshwane will reach a maximum of 21. A drop in the temperatures over the Limpopo province, but it is still cool throughout, where Lephalale is at 23. A cool day in the Limpopo Valley, where Musina will reach a maximum of 22. Morning fog patches there along the escarpment of Mpumalanga. A cool day across West Standerton and Emalahleni at 19. Slightly warmer over the northern areas with Skukuza at a maximum of 25. Light rain and showers along the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal, where it will be cool between eThekwini and Richards Bay, both at a maximum of 21, while Umnambiti will reach a maximum of 18. A cold day over the northern interior of the Eastern Cape, otherwise cool temperatures across the province, where Mthatha will reach a maximum of 21. A cool day at eQonce with a minimum of 6, a maximum of 19. It will be cool across most parts of the Western Cape, but a warm day over the West Coast district, where Clan William is at 28, Vredendal reaching a maximum of 30. Mostly cool temperatures over the Namakwa district of the Northern Cape, with Springbok at 24. Slightly cooler there over the southeastern areas between Kimberley and DR, both at a maximum of 20. Cool temperatures over the southern part of the Free State province, with the Gariep Dam and Wepener at 18. Clear skies in Bloemfontein, Welkom and Kroonstad all at a maximum of 20. And then lastly, the Northwest province expecting fairly cool temperatures across the province. Rustenburg at 21, while Lichtenburg will reach a maximum of 20. Mostly cool temperatures over the far western areas, with Vryburg at 22. I'll leave you there with the weather. Good night.
And that's our bulletin. Thank you for your company. Prime News is back on Monday and then again at 6 p.m. In the meantime, you can stay updated on all our other SABC News platforms. Have a great weekend and enjoy the evening's entertainment here on S3. Good night.